Hello! It's time to go over one of the deadliest groups at the World Cup. Group F, with Belgium, Canada, Morocco, and Croatia. Some people are saying this is the group of death at the tournament, and I might have to agree. Belgium throughout this decade possessed a golden generation of players. However, some of their form recently has been questionable, and obviously some are aging. Regardless though, this side has every reason to believe that they can make a massive impact at this tournament. They finished third in the last one, but another great team in this group that exceeded many people's expectations in 2018 is Croatia, who made it all the way to the World Cup final and lost to France. There are many arguments that this side will not be able to exceed compared to 2018 because they're missing some key players like Mario Mandzukic, Ivan Rakitic, Subasic, but all those critics are neglecting all of the great new talent that is emerging ever since that World Cup has finished. And then you've got two underdogs here that can definitely stir up this group. Morocco, there are some question marks about this side since they just sacked their manager Halil Hodzic and just obtained Regragui, but a lot of Moroccan fans are feeling more confident about that because Regragui is bringing on some of their best players that Halil Hodzic used to reject, allowing these players to also play a lot more freely on the pitch. They're going to be a mystery team for sure, along with Canada, who are proving to be the best CONCACAF team. I mean, they topped their World Cup qualifier group. They were the top goal-scoring nation in 2021 in the world, all being backed by a fantastic manager. This group is filled of life, filled of possibilities. We could definitely see those European teams being the favorites in this group to crumble, allowing at least one of these underdogs to excel, or potentially even both of them. Now, obviously, this is the group I'm most excited for, so obviously I'm going to be throwing some biased claims here and there. And I have brought on a special guest, JJD TV, who is a massive Canada national team fan and has a great channel covering them. Make sure you go check him out. I'll leave a link in the description below. So obviously we'll be doing a deep dive into Canada later on, but before we talk to Josh, let's quickly analyze each of these other teams. First, taking a look at Belgium. A lot of people are expecting the side to top the group. Despite their golden generation disintegrating, they still have some phenomenal players in there like Courtois, Kevin De Bruyne. Lukaku hasn't been in his best form and has suffered some injuries this season, but he always turns up for the national team. He is their top goal scorer by quite a significant margin, with 68 goals at the time of this recording. However, their captain Eden Hazard has obviously not been the same player as he once was. Ever since that transfer to Real Madrid, he has just not produced the same quality. It's really hard to still neglect him though, because he obviously has a lot of experience with the national team, and what he's done throughout his history is just phenomenal. He's the biggest example of that golden generation just not living up to the same as they once were in 2018, but there are still many other examples. Dries Mertens has just transferred from Napoli to Galatasaray this window, and from my knowledge, he has failed to make a massive impact for the Turkish club. He's already 35 years old and not getting as much playing time for the national team compared to before. But what mostly worries me about this golden generation disintegrating for Belgium is their defense. The partnership between Toby Alderweireld and Vertonghen, I mean, they've both had great careers, great partnership at Tottenham that also boosted them playing together for the Belgium national team, obviously. Apart from Axel Witsel, they both hold the most caps for the national team, Vertonghen with the most at 141. But they're definitely both phasing out towards the end of their careers, both currently playing in the Belgian league. Nothing wrong with that, obviously, but it's just a fact. They're not the same players as they once were 4 years ago when they were at their prime at Tottenham. There's obviously a lot of young players coming in to fulfill these roles that I've just talked about. In the attack, Jeremy Doku looks promising, as well as De Ketelaere. But in the defense, it seems like all the other options Belgium are trying to utilize are not working out to the same degree as Vertonghen and Alderweireld. Jason Denayer was a solid shot for some time, but he recently has not been utilized in the squad, and he also recently transferred to a club in the United Arab Emirates. Their young player who looks to be promising at the moment is Zeno De Bast, 18 years of age. He only has 2 caps for the national team, but he put off some decent displays. We'll see if those young players can make the difference though, because I gotta say, and I'm sorry Belgium fans, but this squad is definitely not as electric as that 2018 lineup. Also missing Vincent Kompany is a huge minus. Belgium, for me, were the favorites for that World Cup. So if they weren't able to do it then, and they weren't able to do it in Euro 2020, it's looking a bit doubtful for them at this World Cup. On the plus side, they still haven't given up on their manager, Roberto Martinez. And although he still hasn't won the country an international trophy, he seems to be the man that knows the best for this national team. In each tournament, he showed decent displays, especially the World Cup 2018, only losing to France in the semifinals. But this really will truly be Belgium's potential last chance to grab some silverware, apart from third place at the World Cup. It's still impossible to neglect their best players though. Courtois has been proving to be one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Phenomenal display in the Champions League final against Liverpool, for example. Kevin De Bruyne is one of the best midfielders in the world as well. with some of the most incredible vision I've ever seen. Although some of these players haven't been as potent as before, these two can still be absolute game changers. They finished second in their Nations League group, not being able to win against the Netherlands either time. Not convincing whatsoever, but at the same time, Netherlands are looking very, very strong at the moment. Probably the most informed team in Europe. And now they're going to have to come up against another European team in their group that's looking to be in great form, Croatia. They got first in their Nations League group over the likes of France and Denmark. It was not an easy road, obviously. After our amazing World Cup run in 2018, Croatia went through a bit of a rough patch, obviously transitioning from losing some of those big players. But now a lot of these youngsters are stepping up, especially in the defense, something that's not the case for Belgium. Back then, Lovren and Vida were the center back duo, and the fullbacks were Šime Vrsaljko and Strinic. Now the back line is totally different. You've got youngsters like Gvardiol, Šutalo, Stanisic, Juranovic. Sosa was also phenomenal. It seems like we finally have some depth in the fullback positions. The hunger was always there for Lovren and Vida, and they put off a fantastic display in 2018. But these defenders now, I definitely feel, are more consistent options. New goalkeeper positions as well, although Subasic is dearly missed. Livakovic is now there to replace him. And this backline overall has really risen to the occasion. France for the longest time have been Croatia's kryptonite, but not anymore thanks to this Nations League campaign. Although Rakitic is missing, of course, the Croatian midfield still remains one of the best. Luka Modric is one of the best in the world. Kovacic many times can be Chelsea's unsung hero. Brozovic, one of the best center defensive mids in the Serie A. He did just pick up an injury in the last match against Austria, and he will be out until hopefully right before the World Cup begins. That is the one thing that scares me, but there's no denying his brilliance. He definitely leaves the team always more structured and confident with him at the CDM role. Perisic remains to be one of the most underrated ballers. Maya has proven to be a phenomenal substitute. Maybe he'll even start at the World Cup. The one position that worries me for the Croatian national team is that center forward role. Dalic has been implementing Budimir so many times, and apart from winning us a penalty against France in the Nations League, he really has not been proving himself. Kramaric also has not been always brilliant for the national team. Sometimes he has great displays, but he is not the most consistent, reliable option. One thing I was upset with Dalic for in this Nations League break. I feel like he could have experimented a lot more with that center forward role. Obviously, he brought on Livaya at the end against Austria to get us that winner against them. I see some people are a lot more hopeful for Croatia to have a deep run in this tournament as well after their Nations League success. But it might be tough in this group because, unfortunately, I hate to say it, sometimes Croatia doesn't perform well enough against underdogs. They'll just randomly slip here and there to a side they should be beating. Croatia obviously had a fantastic World Cup in 1998 when they first played as an independent nation, making it to third place, and then the next 3 World Cups were all massive disappointments for them, always getting knocked out of the group stage. It does seem like we are going through an upwards trajectory, but it's going to be tough. Unfortunately, referring to 2014, Croatia does not have great success against CONCACAF nations in the group stage. That was a very good Mexico side though. But this is also a great Canada side. And our match against Morocco will be the first one at the World Cup. Morocco are going to want to fly high and go with a bang very early on, of course. They need to set the momentum. They don't want a repeat of 2018 where they crashed to 4th place. The only time Morocco qualified for the World Cup and made it past the group stage was in 1986. In fact, in their World Cup history, they've only grabbed 2 wins against Portugal in 1986 and against Scotland in 1998. So many people seem to be doubting their side due to their history, but I feel like Morocco fans do have every reason to feel confident for this World Cup. We already know about Hakimi's brilliance, but for the national team, this man just seems to cover everything for him. Great job defending, scoring phenomenal free kicks, just picking up the pace for the national team in general. As I mentioned, their previous coach Halil Hodzic did get sacked, and the main reason being is because he didn't have a good relation with the dressing room. I mean, he was leaving out a lot of crucial players such as Ziyech and Mazraoui. Mazraoui just came back before Halil Hodzic's exit. Still too late, there was still division. Now Ziyech is back himself. Morocco fans became a lot more confident after their friendly win against Chile, looking like the much more dominant side, but then yes, they drew to Paraguay right after. Morocco in the recent AFCON, which was earlier this year, lost in the quarterfinals to Egypt, a side who made it all the way to the final despite failing to qualify for this World Cup themselves. Earlier that year, they didn't play their strongest lineup per se, but they also got knocked out of the quarterfinals in the Arab Cup to Algeria on penalties. This Morocco side will be probably one of the biggest surprises at the World Cup though, because like I said, they got the new manager Regragui, who will be allowing their players to play play more freely on the pitch. They have a solid attack where when they pull their strings together, they can be a lethal unit. Already mentioned Ziyech, but the likes of Buffal can also be very solid. Their striker, En-Nesyri, I know some Moroccans are not very happy with his performances, but we have seen him have some decent displays throughout his career. And in my opinion, their defense could be some of the most energized bunch we'll see at the World Cup. Hakimi and Razououi already mentioned, but their center back Saiss and Aguerd is very quick himself. Their goalkeeper Bono, who plays for Sevilla, won the Goalkeeper of the Year award last year. So it's crazy to think that they're going to be two phenomenal goalkeepers in this group coming from La Liga. They're going to be a very unpredictable team. Obviously, history doesn't suggest that they'll do well. And who knows, maybe they will be a bit of a mess with just signing a new coach months before the tournament. But I think this is a team that can kind of make those sacrifices and those risks. Again, it will be tough against these other teams in one of the most difficult groups, but Morocco fans should still not be discouraged. And for Canada, the side that has failed to qualify for the World Cup since 1986. They are back, stronger than ever. Quite the opposite from Morocco, where they sacked their manager to get a new one months before. They have been relying on John Herdman for quite some time, who has been fantastic for them, making them look like such a structured side. But I've been talking quite a bit, so let me shift the focus over to my conversation with Josh from JJD TV, where he's going to be giving his thoughts on the Canada national team. Josh, thank you for joining the channel. I did notice that in the recent international break, it wasn't the most negative. I mean, you did get a win against Qatar and then a loss against Uruguay, but please guide us your thoughts on that recent international break.
It was a decent window. Like I mentioned a lot of times, Canada hasn't played a nation outside of CONCACAF since January 2020. So the fact that we finally were able to play anybody outside of CONCACAF was a big deal for us. And Qatar's a solid side. There's like this illusion around them that, you know, they're the hosts, they're just got in, but this is the defending Asian Cup champions. They are a good nation, and I was excited to see what Canada would do stacking up against them. And Canada ran them over. Like it was an incredible performance. I was mostly disappointed with how Qatar played as opposed to how Canada played. They just right from the off took it to them. They were completely dominant. Qatar at really no points in that match really scared me to show that this is going to be even a competitive type of game. It was only 2-0, but it could have been more. And it was just a really well-rounded performance from Canada. And it was just really surprising for me, but overall impressive. And it kind of got us geared up for the next match against Uruguay, because this was the real challenge. Like, yes, Qatar is a decent side. After that performance, it kind of made us think like, all right, this is what we could do. Now let's take that big step. Uruguay, not that they overly mattered, but I think they were ranked about 13th in the world at the time. So it was the best opposition Canada's faced in a while. I mean, if you don't count the US and Mexico, but I mean, we faced them quite a bit. So we're really excited about that. And it was a bit of a wake-up call more than anything. I mean, Canada pretty much held possession the majority of the match as well. They just really weren't able to break down Uruguay. They didn't take any of their chances, and then they were punished on the break. John Herdman had his side set up. They wanted to do this game plan, and it kind of seemed like it fell into Uruguay's game plan. They wanted Canada to have the ball. They wanted to sit down. They wanted to defend, and they wanted to hit on the break. They exposed Alistair Johnston a couple times. Darwin Núñez, he had a good finish, and then he probably should have scored another one. At the end of the day, it was frustrating. They didn't take any of their chances, and they were punished. And like I said, a bit of a wake-up call, but hopefully a lot of lessons that John Herdman can kind of learn from and maybe execute them come the World Cup time.
It's huge that Canada was able to sort out these friendlies because, like you mentioned, Uruguay is a side that is one of the best that they faced in so long. But do you still feel that maybe it was not necessarily the best test, just considering the fact that their group has European teams and African teams, no teams from Asia or South America? Because
Canada struggled so much getting these friendlies together, and we had a debacle a few months ago where we had a friendly lined up against Iran. It was canceled. Then we tried to reschedule one with Panama, and it was canceled. So scheduling friendlies has proven a very difficult task for the Canadian men's national team. If it was up to me, I would have, in these last 3 friendlies, the 2 that we just played, and then we have one scheduled right before the World Cup, I would have tried to get literally 2 European nations, try to mimic like maybe like a Serbia, a Poland, something like that, try to get 2 solid European nations in, and then like an Egypt or an Algeria, someone that would be similar to Morocco. That would be the most ideal. And I don't know why they didn't really do it, because like we said, we played an Asian nation in Qatar, a South American one in Uruguay, and then we have another Asian nation in Japan. So it's a little frustrating that way that not one European nation was lined up, considering we have 2 of the biggest European nations in world football, 2nd and 3rd from the last World Cup. But like I said, so there's that side of it. But the fact that the friendlies have been a disaster and we haven't played anybody outside of CONCACAF in so long, I wasn't overly picky, but it does raise some question marks as why couldn't you set up matches that maybe made a little bit more sense? But regardless, we'll have to wait and see. They are good oppositions, and it's going to be a decent test for Canada up to the World Cup.
Yeah, and it's just going to leave everybody more surprised if they do pull out the results. And I see a lot of people expect them to be that quote-unquote underdog that tells, potentially that CONCACAF tale that Costa Rica did in 2014. But we kind of touched on the last international break. What are your overall thoughts, though, positive and negatives as a whole for the Canadian national team?
I think after the games I've seen and just the style that Canada play, I think there's a chance that they could be pretty close to just having possession. It's just what they do with it. And that's where that word naive comes in. They got to be very careful what they're going to do with the ball, because if they don't capitalize, a player like Kevin De Bruyne can completely change the game. I think the biggest positive I like to see out of that Uruguay match was the fact that their heads didn't drop. They never gave up. There's a lot of chances. A bit of a negative, and I'm going to kind of put as a question mark because it's the big question, is kind of Alphonso Davies. He's our superstar, can play literally everywhere. He's played as a winger, he's played as a wing back, he's played as a center attacking mid. I personally think if you're going to get something, especially looking at like that Belgium match that could be so important with, in my opinion, what is an aging and relatively slow back line, having Buchanan and Davies out wide would be massive, just looking at the game ahead. But Davies played a lot centrally. I don't personally like seeing that. I think there's definitely opportunities where he can cut to the middle. He's a great footballer. He's got that ability, but he just kind of lacks that final product that I think kind of makes a number 10. There's a couple times in that Uruguay match where he was basically just playing as a 10 the entire second half. He had a few good opportunities where he set up like Kyle Larin and Jonathan David, but there's like probably 3 or 4 other times where he could have played in that simple ball, that one where like a center attacking mid would see. Someone who's used to the position would see that pass. He kind of overthought it. He overplayed it. And I just don't think that's playing to Davies' strength. If you ask anyone, Canadian or not, what is Alphonso Davies? What would terrify you about him? It's speed. It's ability to get behind the defense. He's very good at putting in balls. He scored a lot of goals from just running out of through balls, and he's got good finishing as well. So I don't really want to see John Herman get too caught up with playing him centrally, but I think there's a bit of a trend there. So I can't honestly tell you where Davies is going to play, but in my just honest opinion, I would prefer him out wide as opposed to this number 10 role that Herman's testing out.
Apart from Alphonso, obviously, he's probably Canada's biggest name. What are some other players that you're predicting that will have a solid display at the tournament, regardless of the results?
Up front, I got to go with Tajon Buchanan. I think that just we missed him in this window. He was injured. He wasn't really able to feature too much. He came on late in the Uruguay match, but he's been a player who's developed so much over these last 18 months, just going from Major League Soccer to Club Brugge. He just had an excellent game against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. He is now like another attacking focal point, and that's what I think that Canada really missed in that Uruguay match, was having the ability to go up both flanks. I think that's why Davies kind of cut into middle quite a bit, because he didn't really have that option. He felt like everything had to go through him. Buchanan just got a little bit of everything. He's just so fast. He's so dynamic. He's straightforward. He's a good finisher. I think that if the ball, like I said, isn't going through Davies that game, Canada have the ability to switch it to Buchanan. He can be dangerous. One of the other players, I would say, honestly, even maybe above Tajon Buchanan, is Stephen Eustáquio. The rise that this guy has gone through is nothing short of incredible. He was at Paços de Ferreira, got this move after his incredible performance with the national team, as well as in the Portuguese League de Porto. He had to be patient too. He moved in January last year. He wasn't far from a starter moving to Porto. Kind of seemed like this is going to be another Canadian transfer that's going to turn into a bust. He fought really hard, waited for his opportunity, and now he started, I think, 8 or 9 consecutive matches in the Champions League. He's one of Porto's most important players. He's scoring goals. He is just completely taking a big step, and all that started in his form for Canada. He's going to be the most important person. Everyone was always worried, where is the replacement for Atiba Hutchinson going to come from? The answer is Stephen Eustáquio. And my final player is Alistair Johnston. Now, this is a player who did just get bullied a little bit against Uruguay. He had a really tough time marking Darwin Nunez, but I still think that despite that one poor performance, he is a very important player for Canada. He gives him the ability to kind of shift at the back. He can play as an outside right center back, a right back. He even plays a wing back. He will be very important for overlapping runs and the defensive shifts he put in. He's just going to have to be a little bit more cautious going up against players like Nunez instead of some of the CONCACAF strikers he's used to going up to, because they can definitely burn him. He had a tough game, but he has been such an important player for Canada, and I'm excited to see what he can do at the World Cup as well.
Which of these countries do you feel Canada has the best chance to grab at least 1 point against, or even 3?
The perception from Canada is if Canada is going to somehow sneak out of the group, not saying that they're going to, but if they are, you have to imagine they're going to have to take 3 points from Morocco and then nip a point maybe somewhere else. So it was funny. Morocco has the same kind of like perception. They're like, all right, if we're going to challenge, we have to beat Canada and maybe get a result elsewhere. So for me, if Canada is going to make it out, I think it would be through like a 1-1-1 record. I think they'd have to beat Morocco. I think more than likely, just looking at the way that the Belgian team is set up, I think our speed could potentially really hurt them. And if we were able to shut down a player like KDB, so I want to say like there's a chance. I feel more confident getting something out of Belgium just on form in the way that this team is set up as I do for Croatia. So that's kind of how I would put it. 3 from Morocco. You got to hope for maybe 1 from Belgium, and then just the way that Croatia's playing, I don't feel overly confident, but you know, it's always possible. That's kind of like the ranking I would do of who I'm hoping Canada can get points off of.
What are your overall predictions for this group as of a month before the tournament starts?
Costa Rica run really makes me truly believe, but I don't know. I've pretty consistently said that I think Canada's gonna get 3rd, but you know, now we're 30 days away. I gotta hope. You gotta go in there with the assumption that they're gonna do it. So I'm gonna go Croatia first. I did change my mind just after watching over the past few months watching this Belgian side. I just think there's a lot of question marks. Lukaku, Eden Hazard not looking like anything like Eden Hazard used to be. That back line, I don't know. I think Belgium, there could be a big upset on the cards, whether it's us or Morocco even sneaking through. But I said Croatia will top the group. I'm gonna go on a limb. Why not? First time I've said it, but I'm gonna go Canada in 2nd, and then Belgium 3rd and Morocco 4th. But honestly, like I said, I've been pretty non-biased. So anyone who's watching this video, I've said consistently that Canada is going to finish 3rd. But you know, you're getting hyped up. It's 30 days away. I'll go for it.
Thanks to Josh once again for joining the channel. Make sure you go check him out. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description below. And shout out to him for being hopeful for Croatia grabbing 1st as well. I'm going to have to agree with him. I think Croatia's looking very strong at the moment. I know a lot of people are calling me biased for this, but look, they topped their World Cup group last time. They just topped their Nations League group, and they're looking to be in an upwards trend at the moment. So I'm going to be hopeful for Hrvatska. They're going to get 1st place. Despite that center forward issue, I trust Dalic. Now for that 2nd place spot, it's tough. Part of me really wants to believe in an underdog squeezing out. And with these incredible generations of talents for Morocco and Canada that will be very energetic at this World Cup, it could leave that Belgian defense to struggle. I know some people think I'm over-exaggerating that statement on their defense, but it really could happen. At the moment, I'm not going to go for it though. This opinion could change, but my opinion only matters so much. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm saying Belgium gets 2nd, Morocco 3rd, and Canada 4th. Best of luck to Canada though. Like Josh said, that match against Canada versus Morocco can very much dictate the path for them, and maybe one of them can squeeze a point against Belgium or Croatia, or even grab a win against one of us. It's very possible. To everyone that's believing in these underdogs to pull through, fair play. This is a group where you should just not be surprised if an upset happens. Hell, I could even be overrating Croatia too much. Maybe they will end up slipping at the World Cup. But I do believe in Hrvatska's solid form at the moment. I do think it will carry over to Qatar. We shall see though. Guys, let me know your thoughts on everything. Thank you for making it to the end. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new. I will see you all very, very soon for the next World Cup preview. Let me know what you want to see next in the comments. Take care. Laku noć.